Everyone for joining today. My name is John LeBaron. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Pattern. I know we have a handful of people still joining the call, but I wanted to get started and kick this thing off. So again, thank you so much for joining today. Happy Tuesday. We are so excited to be able to bring this webinar to you preparing for Prime Day. I anticipate there may be a fair amount of questions, especially given the fact that we don't know if Prime Day is actually going to happen. But we'll get into that in just a little bit as well. In the meantime, I wanted to introduce all of us here on the panel today and give you guys a quick overview of what we're going to be covering. As a quick reminder, this session is being recorded and will be distributed to all attendees and registrants afterwards. I encourage you guys to use the Q&A panel module here on Zoom and submit any questions that you may have for any of our panelists, and I'll try to get to them throughout the session today. And certainly, as we wrap up some of the slides we'll be covering, I'll get to those as well. So again, my name is John LeBaron. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Pattern. I'm going to be moderating this session today. We are joined by Newel Cobb, Senior Brand Manager here at Pattern, who has been in this industry for quite a while too, worked at Walmart, worked for a number of folks in this space as well. So very excited to get his insight. And we're thrilled to introduce you guys and welcome Jessica Bourne from Coravin. She's the Director of Business Development at Coravin. And assuming that a handful of you may not actually know what Coravin is or what they do, I wanted to give her a little bit of a 30-second commercial to introduce Coravin. And I think it's just such a cool, innovative product that I thought you guys would want to hear about it as well. So take it away, Jessica.
Thanks for having me, John. Really excited. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Coravin, the Coravin wine preservation system is the first and only tool in the world that allows you to pour wine without taking the cork out of the bottle. The reason why that's so cool is since the cork stays in place, you continue to preserve your wine for weeks, months, or even years. So whether you want to enjoy just a glass at the end of the day, or you want to entertain and give your guests access to every wine that you own instead of just the 2 or 3 bottles that you have open, or you're a budding sommelier that's looking to learn how to do food and wine pairings, Coravin is a perfect solution. And of course, people are discovering Coravin in restaurants and wineries around the world, but a big place that they're discovering Coravin is also Amazon. So that brings us here today, and hopefully we have some good insights we can share with you.
Love it. And it's not Friday yet, so hopefully you guys don't get too thirsty here for a happy hour, but I guess I won't judge anyone if happy hour starts a little bit earlier on Tuesday as well.
5 o'clock somewhere, John.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. So I was literally just checking the news again right before we started this because everyone's kind of biting their tongue to see when this thing's going to happen. The short answer is we don't know, but I was just reading the New York Times, Tech Radar. There are a number of publications out there that are basically coalescing around this September date. And I think anyone's guess, unless you've received confirmation, feel free to put that in the chat window as well. But it seems to be like the center of gravity happening around September. So we're just going to proceed as though something's going to happen in September and preparing. And I'd say even if, you know, for some reason Prime Day doesn't happen, I would say most of the strategies that we're going to cover today are certainly applicable to the holidays as well. So with that, let's just kind of set the stage a little bit. Before we kind of get into some of the tips, I wanted to just kind of call out something that I think is important to recognize. And it's something that I think everyone kind of recognizes up front as well. And that, you know, Prime Day is a circus. It's not unlike Black Friday and Cyber Monday or, you know, 11/11 if you're maybe in the Asian marketplaces. It's kind of crazy. And it may not be as crazy as this image that is here from Colt MTL, but, you know, I think there's a lot of pressure. When we talk to the brands that we represent, and again, if you're not familiar with Pattern, we represent about 70 different brands, from Nestle to Clorox to Sylvania to Panasonic to a number of different brands that basically outsource or partner with us to run their marketplace business or e-commerce business across Walmart.com, Amazon.com, eBay, Alibaba, you know, the list kind of goes on. But we have a lot of brands that come to us and they feel this pressure, immense pressure. They might be 3P, they might be 1P, they might be in some hybrid situation. And it's like I'm getting all this pressure from my board, from my executive team, from my vendor manager, from whomever to like really go all in on this thing. And so I think, you know, what we wanted to kind of call out before we kind of get too far into some of the recommendations is just taking a step back, taking a deep breath. Now we have time this year as well. And it's basically like, just kind of assess your goals. And Newel will get into this in just a little bit, but you know, we have a lot of brands, many brands, honestly, that don't discount at all during Prime Day, sometimes even not even during the holidays. And they've been incredibly successful. We've grown some of those brands 4 or 5x over the last several years as well. So it's absolutely possible to not participate meaningfully in the actual merchandising programs or Prime Day programs and still get a massive benefit from it. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but I think the most important part is just stepping back and looking at, well, what are your goals, right? Do you have some goals leading up for your brand into the holidays or certainly into Prime Day? Are you trying to get rid of excess inventory? Are you trying to gain market share or increase sales? Are you trying to launch a new product? Are you defending against new entrants or aggressive competitors that are nipping at your heels? Are you trying to grow the category of your brand or increase awareness or trial? Do you have one of those products that maybe is a consumable that you're just like, man, once people try this, I'm willing to have like a loss leader just because my customer lifetime value is so high, for example. You may have some goal around holiday tests and preparation to understand what works, what your selection should be, what the opportunity is to grow. There may be some seasonality in the mix. Or you may, like I said, you may be feeling pressure from other executives or board members or your vendor manager or whatever it looks like. So I think it's important to look back and say, what are my goals? And then match whatever your goals are to a specific strategy around this. And so we just wanted to kind of go through these major 3 options. And I'm going to let Newel speak probably to the first 2 and Jessica speak to the last one. But, you know, one option certainly, as I mentioned before, is to stand your ground. And really not to participate meaningfully, not to give up a bunch of margin, not to drop your price, not to do a ton of promos, but potentially to just take advantage of, you know, increased traffic and things like that. Another option is to go all in. If you have a ton of inventory you're trying to move out, if you're in a highly seasonal business, for example, or if you've done Prime Day in the past and it just worked phenomenally and you've got margin to give and you're not afraid of, you know, third-party sellers arbitraging, like there are a lot of ways that it makes a ton of sense to go all in on Prime Day. And the last is some meeting somewhere in the middle and doing some version of a hybrid scenario. And so I just want to explore all 3 of those before we get to some of the specific recommendations that we have. And again, I'll just remind everyone, if you have questions for our panelists today, Newel or Jessica, feel free to submit them through the Q&A. I've already seen a handful come through, so I'll start to review them when I'm not talking and get to those as we continue to moderate the session. But I'll pass it over to you for a second, Newel. And so you can walk through maybe some of the first 2 examples that we just did a high-level overview and do a little bit of a deeper dive.
Totally, and thanks, John, for having me today. So long story short, you really can just stand your ground on Prime Day and still have a lot of pros. And the reasons for that is because Prime Day becomes a traffic day, and really by standing your ground, you may not have to go head over heels getting coupons or lightning deals, etc., to really ride that traffic wave. And really some of the pros to this is that if you can just ride that traffic wave, you avoid the expensive part of prepping for Prime Day, possibly failing at Prime Day. When you stand your ground, you don't have to worry about having some discount item pop up on Amazon, you know, 3 weeks later and undercutting the buy box, you know, for your portfolio. And then you also, by not playing in Prime Day, there's also the chance that when you do play, you buy a ton of inventory. And if it doesn't sell out, you can have a ton of overstocks. So there really are a lot of pros to standing your ground. In fact, at Pattern, typically our partners stand their ground. And so just an example, last Prime Day 2019, less than 1% of our products were on discount, but we still sold 53% more units on Prime Day than we did the previous day, or the same day from the previous week, which ended up leading to about revenue being up by about 94% week over week. So again, with the stand your ground strategy, you can still see a major sales boost. What's interesting about Prime Day growing each year is that in 2019, we saw only a 4% increase in unit sales, but because our average selling price was significantly higher, our revenue was actually up 2019 to 2018 by about 77%. So again, often we think that in order to play in Prime Day, we have to discount by a ton, but in reality, customers come to Prime Day expecting to shop. Now, some of the cons, though, of standing your ground and not really playing on Prime Day is that you do leave the door open to your competitors. So if you aren't discounting and they are, that gives them an opportunity to really come in and steal some of that market share. Then, of course, you do miss the opportunity to boost your sales further. I mean, we all know that because of Econ 101, by lowering price, you usually tend to move more units. And then, of course, one of the other problems with standing your ground on Prime Day is the fact that you don't really have you have a control set, but you don't really have a test set of data to really experiment with for future holiday events, whether it's Black Friday, or a Prime Day in one of the following years. And so this really, in juxtaposition, there's the strategy of going all in. So, hey, if you're not the type of person that wants to just stand your ground and ride the wave, you could say, look, I want to discount all of my SKUs and I want to run advertising on all of my SKUs. And again, some of the cons to that is it really can be time consuming to plan, if you've got a portfolio of 20 to 1,000 SKUs, even with a small amount, it really can be time consuming. And on top of the time consumption, it can be expensive to play. You've really got to track your ROI. And so the way I like to look at Prime Day is I look at how much I spend, and my sales post Prime Day need to be high enough than my sales pre-Prime Day to be worth it. Because the whole idea is that you're coming in, you're getting this boost, and you want these long-term effects. Again, one of the cons of going all in is kind of previously mentioned. If you stand your ground and don't do anything, you've got a control group of data, but nothing to test. But if you go all in, you don't have a control group of data to test against. And so you don't actually know if your positive numbers come from the fact that Prime Day just was a positive sales boost. And then, of course, the pros to really doing this, though, is that you do gain market share. You move a ton of inventory. If you actually discount or promote your entire catalog, you may have a few unexpected wins that you previously weren't thinking of. And then, of course, you can incentivize new customers to come in. They may come into one of your products that you weren't previously going to promote, and then that introduces them to the brand. Now, of course, one other risk going all in to Prime Day is really if you go out of stock, you could hurt yourself more than had you not participated. And so, as we know with the Amazon flywheel, by going out of stock, it's actually worse to go out of stock after a huge promotion than to have not run the promotion and stay in stock. And then, as mentioned in the previous slide, you do risk the fact that somebody can come in and buy your inventory at a 10, 20% discount and then start selling it, and not just like on eBay, but they could start selling it on Amazon on the same listing page. So that is one of the risks of going all in. And so this was where we like to talk about the hybrid strategy. And I'll go ahead, and Coravin's done a really good job with the hybrid strategy in the past. And so Jessica, if you want to take it from here.
Yeah, so Coravin has landed somewhere in the middle on our Prime Day strategy. So we're up against a couple of challenges. First challenge is that Coravin has a pretty strict SRP across our entire omni-channel marketplace, Amazon, traditional retail, etc. So whatever we do for Prime Day can't be overly disruptive to the rest of the channel. We also had been struggling with rogue third-party sellers purchasing on promotion and then relisting on Amazon. So I'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about how we rectified that situation. But when we look at our Prime Day offering, our biggest consideration is selecting a SKU that doesn't have very wide availability elsewhere in the market. So this year we're using a limited edition SKU, but we do give it a pretty good discount because we see sales lift that's comparable to like a Black Friday level of sales. And Coravin is traditionally a pretty seasonal business, so this allows us to get a really nice boost of sales in the summer, in this case September or October, when we're able to do Prime Day. So it really allows us, because we're picking one SKU, to focus all of our efforts on that SKU. And we've done everything from working with our vendor manager on 1P side to try to take advantage of lightning deals. To be quite honest, we haven't had a ton of success with lightning deals. They're hit or miss. Sometimes you get really lucky and you get an awesome slot for a lightning deal or spotlight deal and end up selling really well. There have been other years where we've gotten the graveyard shift and you get your 4 or 6 hour promotion and then it's almost like your product wasn't on promotion at all. So this year, Newel and I are going to test a couple things. We're actually testing right now couponing that's outside of the traditional Prime Day promotion, but something that will kind of run in parallel versus just dropping the price on our own and then trying to test what level of advertising is appropriate. So again, in the past, we've done everything from very low levels of AMS to investing a pretty substantial amount of money through AMG campaigns. This year, we'll probably land somewhere in the middle where we'll invest pretty substantially in AMS, layer on some additional display advertising, and then just keep that baseline intact. And I think that's going to give us a pretty successful Prime Day this year.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing all that, Jessica. And again, I guess I want to just underscore this whole notion of these 3 strategies should in fact support the goals, and just taking 10, 20 minutes, whatever it is, to write all your goals down beforehand of like, what are we actually trying to accomplish here, just to make sure that you don't end up as the image I showed earlier was that everyone's scrambling for TVs. It can feel like that as a brand or as a seller trying to get in there and get your product mentioned, but at what cost? I think is generally the question that we start to ask ourselves. So wanted to switch gears here, assuming that you know your goals and assuming you've kind of implemented some sort of stand your ground, go all in the deep end of the pool with Prime Day or do some variation of hybrid, like Jessica mentioned a second ago, wanted to kind of switch gears here and talk a little bit about amplifying your presence. So for the remainder of the webinar, I wanted to kind of walk through some of the ideas that we have that really can be supportive of almost any of the strategies we talked about. And I guess just for everyone's knowledge, I heard from a handful of folks in the audience that they're hearing more recently that Prime Day may actually take place in October instead of September. And I think all of us are kind of waiting with bated breath to see what ends up happening with the COVID situation as well, because we know, as many of you have experienced as well, delays in shipping times or lead times, or essential versus non-essential products getting shipped, et cetera. So it feels like Amazon is definitely kind of recovered, but I think depending on spikes and what ends up happening, it could absolutely affect this as well. So with that, let's talk about some of the strategies of amplifying your presence during any high traffic periods. And I'll turn it back over to you, Jessica, for a second to kind of walk through this notion of covering your basics.
Sure. So I think Newel and I would agree that before you start leaning into Prime Day or any sort of promotion, before you start getting ready for the busy holiday shopping period, it's really, really important that you cover all of the basics. And that means making sure that your entire catalog is really easy to discover and it's easy to shop. And this is something last year we finally undertook for Coravin, and it's really made a big difference. You can make some small changes to your product pages that are going to improve conversion, and with conversion, you're going to improve your bestseller ranking. So your product is going to start appearing higher and higher in those search results, which is awesome. That's going to serve you for Prime Day and beyond. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is use keywords and phrases that your customer is actually searching for in your title and your description. There's actually something that was a little bit of a fight for Coravin, because those titles that we started using became rather long. But it was really important for us to articulate in the title, this is the Coravin wine preservation system, this is the model, this is exactly what's included with this particular bundle. Those are little details that allowed people to understand right from the category page what they were getting when they got into our product page. And then with our descriptions, it was critical that weaving in those keywords, we were making use of every single bullet that we had available to us. There were no throwaway bullets. So we really needed to ensure that people understood what Coravin was and how it fit into their life. And of course, that wasn't just above the fold content. That was something that we carried into our A+ content as well, which I would really encourage everyone to look into, because it's completely enhanced our product listing pages and given people a much fuller story of what Coravin is. We also worked with Pattern to completely revamp our image stacks. One thing that I didn't know before we started this undertaking is that most people aren't going to read through your bullets at all. They're going to scroll through the photos. They're going to glean whatever information they can from those photos, and if there's a video in there, they'll glean information from that, and then they're going to make their purchase decision. So Pattern was actually able to help us distill down some of the most important parts of the Coravin brand into the image stacks themselves. So now as you're scrolling through any Coravin listing, you're seeing what exactly is included in the bundle, how the product works, core benefits of the system, just by scrolling right through. So it makes it really easy to shop now, and we believe really improves our conversion rate, which is something going into Prime Day you absolutely have to do.
Love it. Well, thanks a ton, Jessica. And I certainly love seeing all those star ratings here right now. It's fantastic product. Again, I'll give my little infomercial plug here. These products are awesome.
That's actually a great point, though. Like if your products are low on star rankings, both from a number of rankings or low rankings, think through strategies that can enhance both number and quality of reviews. Is there additional information that you can provide? Are your instructions up to snuff? We've had to go through all of those exercises, both on Amazon and off Amazon, to ensure that those reviews continue to crawl up over time. And certainly for us, our Prime Day SKU is actually a newer SKU, so it becomes even more important for Newel and I to work together to make sure that that product gets into people's hands at full price, and that they're reviewing it either through early reviewer programs or Amazon Vine or whatever that happens to be. So we're appearing where we need to when the day actually comes. And then the last piece that I would add is start working with a law firm that specializes in e-control if you're having any issues with rogue third-party sellers. I thought I was playing whack-a-mole for a really, really long time, where I was like trying to chase these guys down and track them down and shut them down all myself, not realizing that that getting a little bit of muscle behind you really is the right way to approach the situation. And we were losing a pretty substantial amount of sales to these rogue sellers that were coming in and purchasing product on promotion, relisting it, or purchasing it from international distributors or what have you. So it was really clouding the market a little bit, and we've since been able to clean everything up. But going into any sort of promotion, the more that you can be capturing the buy box, the better all of this will go.
Yeah, I totally agree. So many good points there, Jessica. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I guess back to the star rating and review count as well. One of the other things I will mention is, a lot of brands that when we start working with them, they're taking somewhat of a laissez-faire approach when it comes to responding to reviews or questions even. They're kind of just leaving it out to other advocates of the brand to respond, and hopefully not any other competitors to respond. So one of the things that we do here at Pattern is we have a full customer service team that responds to those reviews, works in tandem with the brand to ensure that how we're responding and the common questions and what sort of we can provide. But our SLA is 24 hours, but on most brands, we're under the 2-hour SLA for almost every negative star review, or I guess anything less than a 1, 2, or 3-star review, as well as any questions. So I think that can also play a big role in just ensuring, that you're responding to any of those negative reviews or questions that a customer may have. And certainly other people that come up upon that and see that review later, they know that you're on top of it. They know that you're someone's representing your brand, and they're coming back with all the right answers and a lot of empathy, et cetera. So I think that can also be a big boon in terms of covering the basics. All right, Newel, let's turn it over to you in terms of just capitalizing some of this traffic. Why don't you walk us through some of the details around this?
Totally. Thanks, John. So again, the reason why you want to cover your basics is because you're going to have many more eyeballs on your products than you would on any other time really on Amazon. And when I say any other time, I really am serious, because Amazon Prime Day traffic is higher than the Black Friday or the Cyber Monday traffic. And so, you know, for those of us who've been in retail a while, there's always like this reverence for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And in just a couple of years, Amazon Prime has come into the equation and really outperformed those holidays on its platform. The other thing to understand, though, is you want to realize that Amazon Prime is becoming less and less an Amazon holiday and more a total e-commerce holiday. And so you will actually see an increase in sales on your Walmart platforms, on your D2Cs, et cetera. In fact, when I was managing a Walmart business, we had to make sure we had the stock for Amazon Prime. I was at Walmart during one of the first Prime days, and it was a little surprising when all of a sudden, you know, we had this giant boost in sales on a completely different platform. And so what you want to do is you want to just make sure that you've got your basics covered, not just on Amazon, but across your e-commerce channels, because you're going to be seeing a lot of traffic. And again, that just goes to the fact that even though 9 out of 10 customers are checking Amazon before they buy something somewhere else, the customer really is using these Chrome extensions and these blogs to really shop across the e-commerce ecosphere. And you just want to make sure that you're ready to capitalize on that across the entire market. And so again, the whole point of Prime, right, is to increase your revenue. And so at Pattern, we have a revenue equation that's traffic times conversion times basket price. Multiply that by repeat customer, and you've got your revenue. And so, of course, traffic is going to be up, which means that if we left all other variables the same, we're going to see that boost on Prime Day. But in reality, the Amazon Prime customer, you're not seeing a sales boost just because you're seeing a traffic boost. In fact, conversion jumps by 50% on Prime Day for Amazon. And so if you're used to an 8% conversion, you can expect a 16% conversion, and so on. And again, when you're increasing traffic tenfold and you're increasing conversion by 50%, that's why we see that increase in revenue on Amazon. So again, going back to the cover your basics, if you can get your pre-Amazon Prime conversion rate up to 10%, that's worth twice as much or 4 times as much, depending on how you look at it, for the Prime Day period. And again, weeks and months and even like right now, you should be considering ways to boost your organic search rank. So there's ways to boost your organic search rank. These ways include search engine optimization. So as Jessica mentioned, making sure that you've got the right title, the right keywords, the right hitting keywords. On top of that, advertising. As customers purchase your products, they become higher up on the page. External links into Amazon, whether it's an affiliate site or Facebook marketing, etc. Amazon weighs that significantly higher than an internal click in terms of how they rank their pages. And the reason why this is so important is because if you look at this heat map, you can essentially see that the red section is where customers are clicking on. And so row 1 ends up getting about 20% of the clicks for a given search term. Row 2 gets about 16%. Row 3 gets about 9%. And so again, if you're going from row 3 to row 2 organically, you're essentially multiplying your click share by a factor of somewhere between 50 and 80%. And so if you can get yourself higher up on that page before Prime, then what happens is when all of that traffic comes and all of that conversion follows, you've essentially positioned yourself in a place where you can ride that wave regardless of which of the 3 strategies you decided to go with.
Love it. So let's switch gears a little bit away from kind of the technical side and come back to some other things that levers that people can pull during this Prime Day or even up to the holidays that people may not be thinking of. So, Jessica, Newel, maybe you guys can tag team a little bit on this and just kind of explain a little around Amazon Live, what it is for those that aren't familiar with it, how much it costs, maybe dispel some myths, et cetera here.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Amazon Live, it's Amazon's take on kind of a QVC live stream video. And on these live shows, you'll identify a host to represent your brand, and then that person is going to demonstrate the product and talk through benefits. And it's more of like a long stream, almost infomercial feel. So in the case of Coravin, when we do Amazon Live, we'll do wine tastings and food pairings. Sometimes we'll even include a sommelier along with the inventor and founder of Coravin to play off each other and talk a little bit about how each is using the product in their own life. So when I first heard about Amazon Live, it was in the context of the AMG ecosystem through Amazon Media Group. And I thought it was something that was really expensive. So you certainly can go down a path where you're spending a pretty substantial amount of money to be featured on an Amazon Live that appears either on Amazon's homepage or really prominently within the Amazon Live homepage. But you can also see some good results, some increases in sales by putting these videos up for very low investment, only an investment of whatever it's going to cost you to promote those Amazon Live listings and still get your message out. So this is actually something that we began testing with Pattern last year, and we're still learning what the best recipe is. But what we're finding is if you can do an Amazon Live and associate it with some sort of promotion, some sort of event, you really can see a great increase in sales, especially if you have a brand like ours where the product really needs to be seen to be fully understood. Amazon Live is a great layer that you can add into the promotions that you're doing.
Love it. Newel, any other comments you want to add around Amazon Live?
Yeah, I would just say, like any strategy we propose, these are not just Prime Day strategies. They are pre and post Black Friday strategies, and you really should be doing this often. And I highly recommend doing this, especially the weeks going into Prime. And October, we're going to be thinking about Black Friday too. Try it out and learn from it and see if this is something that works for your brand.
The cool thing about Amazon Live too is that you don't necessarily have to film the video live and publish it live. So we've done that in the past, and it's great if you have the production abilities to do that. But in the ages of COVID and social distancing, we also have had our inventor film a video in his wine cellar. Pattern has added additional supers and graphics on top of that, and then they can just publish it. So you can kind of get away with pre-producing some of these videos and kind of having some evergreen content in the can that can, to Newell's point, serve you well throughout the entire year.
Totally. And in the world of TikTok, like videos are becoming a little bit scrappier every year, and so don't think you need to have some crazy expensive studio to film this.
Yeah, love it. It strikes me that, especially with something like Coravin, which is a highly kind of experiential, educational type product, I think this can work very, very well. If anyone in the audience has this type of product that requires a little bit more education, or you're building a category, or there are really some key things that you can highlight against competitors, or ease of use, or whatever this looks like, features and functionality. I think about it a lot in terms of even some of the luggage that we sell for some of the brands that we represent, like, Toomey, the telescoping, lever, and like some of the double stitching on the zippers. There's so many things that you can really start to highlight through an Amazon Live type environment that brings a lot of benefits and is able to highlight in a way that you can't do through those static images. So, okay, back to you, Newell.
Great, yeah. So Jessica touched base on lightning deals earlier, and if you have anything to add, Jessica, please do. But here on the bottom, this graph is a sales rank graph. And so sales rank is like golf, the lower your score, the better in this terms. And so as we see the green line go down, that's actually better for sales. But essentially, the idea of prime is that you want to make a sales rank essentially improve post-prime than pre-prime. And so in this case, there's a product here that has a lightning tail, and the lightning tail is represented by the red line there. And you can see how the sales rank going into prime is significantly higher than it is outside of Prime Day. And so again, the idea here is that you want to run your prime promotions so that you can improve your sales really long after Prime Day has run. Now, there's a couple of ways to do that. There are coupons, which are, they cost per click, not per unit sold. There's lightning deals, which Jessica mentioned, that you can get the graveyard shift and totally luck out, or you can get the, the prime time selling shift, and you practically won a little lottery there. And then there's, of course, just manually lowering your price if you're a third-party seller. There are some risks to that in terms of suppression afterwards. But if this is a Prime Day exclusive product, that is something you may not have to worry about. But again, just remember that your goal for Prime Day is to get that sales rank significantly better for the weeks, the months, even the quarters after you've run Prime Day. And that also applies to Black Friday or any other holiday event.
Love it. Let's keep going down the path in terms of on the distribution front. We've spoken a lot around listings and how to prepare. Let's talk about, avoiding out of stocks.
Great. So again, we talked about earlier the flywheel. The Amazon flywheel punishes those who go out of stock. So much so that if I had the choice between having a successful promotion and going out of stock or not running a promotion, 8 times out of 10, I'm going to choose to stay in stock. What we noticed, by the way, is we know that when COVID really started to spike earlier this year, Amazon started to experience significant shipping delays. And these shipping delays essentially meant that if we wanted to fulfill our products, we either had to A, have had the product into the Amazon fulfillment network before the deadlines happened or the borders were closed, or B, fulfill out of our own warehouses, which can be frankly expensive. That was during Q1, which typically experiences a bit of a sales slump after, a mega Q4. And so all the data supports that there's going to be a second spike of COVID here in the coming months as we enter winter in the northern hemisphere, and that on top of the fact that everyone's going to be shipping in their inventory for Q4. We highly recommend that you get your Q4 inventory and your Prime Day inventory in as soon as possible. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, but the data suggests that in a Q1 kind of lower sales period, if Amazon's going to lock people out for a matter of 3 to 4 weeks, we can only imagine what could happen in a Black Friday prep or a Q4 or a Prime Day prep. And so we definitely recommend that you do whatever you can to get that inventory into Amazon's fulfillment center as soon as possible.
Yeah, I guess just one comment on my end. One of the things we saw even in Q4 of last year, and certainly we saw it with the essential versus non-essential kind of piece that Amazon put in place is, even though you've shipped everything to Amazon, you put it on YRC or UPS or whatever, it just sits in the lot. And Amazon basically just says, just go sit out there and we'll get to it when we get to it. Leave it out there. And there are literally hundreds of trucks just sitting out there at some of these different massive fulfillment centers, and they just been sitting out there. There were times there were 6 weeks just sitting out there. So I would just say, one option to circumvent that is a little bit more expensive, but can get you in faster if you're in a pinch. Let's say you've got a new product launch that something's not ready to go yet, or some snafu that doesn't allow you to get weeks ahead on time. You can actually parcel ship to Amazon, and they have to receive it. And so that can be a way to speed up, turn a 6-week delay into a 2-week delay instead. But again, if you have, bigger products or even smaller products, it can be expensive to ship it through, but just wanted to kind of pass along some of that data here. Let's talk about testing some of this data on Prime Day as well.
Yeah, so the first part of my career was in marketing, so I love a good marketing test. Newel can attest that I'm constantly texting him, asking him to try different things, which is actually one of the things I really like about Pattern. He definitely will indulge lots of my different ideas and tests, and we work together to see what works. But I think Prime Day is an awesome testing ground. Or even now, if Amazon's doing their summer sale, the summer sale is a great testing ground for Prime Day, which is a great testing ground for Black Friday. So we actually saw that one of Amazon's affiliates, without any direction from us, posted a TikTok a couple of weeks ago, and it received, I think, 43,000 views and generated some pretty good traffic to the site. So Newel and I now are kind of looking in and saying, like, okay, should we be thinking about a more formal influencer program that's driving specifically to Amazon through Amazon's already established affiliate network to help us increase our traffic around events like Prime Day or Black Friday. So that's likely something that we're going to try for Prime Day that we might replicate in holiday. You can also try things like, hey, is a coupon the right approach for us to get the best conversion? Is it better for us just to slash the price? If you're in a 3P model, you have a little bit more flexibility in the way that you handle price reductions. And each one of them has pros and cons, both during and after the promotion that you have to kind of weigh. But we'll test things like, hey, is the coupon working? Is this something that we might want to replicate for Black Friday? Or do we want to approach things in a different way? Do we want to add in a layer of display ads for holiday, or should we just stick with AMS because that's where we're getting the best return on ad spend? There's a lot of different things that you can test, and unfortunately you can get a pretty good read without investing a really crazy level of money. And usually, as far as our brand is concerned, we see generally pretty good return on ad spend with our Amazon investments. So I would definitely encourage you, if you're interested in trying something out, no harm in dedicating a little bit of budget to doing it now, and then hopefully just driving it even higher around Prime Day or Black Friday.
I want to speak to Jessica's constant urge to test things out. So, for example, we found out a couple of weeks ago that Amazon was having a summer sale, which is actually going on right now, but it was focused specifically on retail or on apparel. And so Jessica said, hey, why don't we test out specifically a coupon that we were going to do for Prime Day? Let's just see how it does this time period, because we don't know if we want to do a coupon or a manual price change or a lightning deal. So I don't want to skew the results, but even right now live, we have a coupon being tested during this Amazon summer sale to see if this is something that we want to do specifically for Prime Day, or if we want to instead, again, try out the lightning deal or just manually lower the price. So again, I just want to when you've got someone like Jessica, or how you would manage your own brands, I would say just always be thinking of different things to try out and test them. And really, this is the way out of your competition, because they're going to be doing the same thing.
Love it. That's a pretty sweet coupon here in the screenshot. It's massive. Cool. So I guess as a quick recap for everyone, and I saw a handful of questions that I tried to reply to, by the way, as well as a heads up that someone did receive a note from Amazon this morning that said you need to ship your goods in now for Prime Day. So I think, again, all signals point to this is probably still something that's going to happen. And if anyone has any other insights that they've been able to glean or emails they've received, let us know. As a quick refresher, if you have any other questions for the panelists that we did not get to, feel free to type them in. I think other than that, we'll probably wrap up in the next couple of minutes. I just wanted to provide a quick recap for everybody as we start to go through this. So at a high level, assess your goals up front. Are you trying to get rid of inventory? Are you trying to steal share? Are you trying to defend against a competitor? There are a lot of different, strategies that you could technically employ for yourself leading up to the holidays or leading up to Prime Day. The second thing is decide the strategy that best matches the goals that you have. Are you going to stand your ground? Are you not going to give up margin? Are you not going to kind of like feed the customer's need for a deal, and you're going to just hold at your MAP price or whatever pricing you have in place? Certainly some pros and cons to that. The other option is going all in and really playing into that pandemonium, that notion of additional traffic, a chance to get in front of either new products in front of your competitors or in front of customers, or really a chance to have like more of a loss leader and trial period. And again, like there are so many brands that I look at over the years that just have done a phenomenal job on Prime Day of going all in. I think Instapot is the one that kind of comes to mind first for me. Is just they're just all over it, and you can see that just penetration into that category and that category creation. Category creation has been fascinating to watch. And the third strategy, again, to match depending on your goals, might be some sort of hybrid. And I think that's honestly where we spend a lot of the time today, is just focusing on what are some of those hybrid strategies that you can employ to capitalize on increased traffic, higher conversions, et cetera, et cetera. So, the next part of this is just to make sure that you have a cohesive strategy around, how to capitalize on the increased traffic and conversion, what to do from a distribution standpoint to make sure that you stay in stock. Absolutely. There's some ideas around testing. There are some ideas around different levers that you can pull. Certainly trying to increase your BSR, or I guess decrease your BSR, leading up to some of these holidays and big events, to make sure that you have as much momentum as possible, and then monitoring that momentum afterwards, especially if you're going to do some sort of a deal. Look to see how that helped your BSR over time, because honestly, that short-term discount, if it turns into a long-term betterment of your BSR over time, that can be a really worthwhile investment, but it's something you have to absolutely have to take a look into. So anything else? I try to cover as much of that and encapsulate as much of the learnings that we've discussed today. Maybe I'll turn it back to you guys just for a second before we wrap. Newel, any other parting thoughts that you have from your end, or things you would want to underscore for any of the attendees on the call today?
Yeah, great. I would just say that really Prime Day is kind of like running a marathon, and you don't want to just go ahead and train 5 weeks ahead of time or 3 weeks ahead of time. You want to be prepping for next year's marathon right now. And so just always, one of the things that I admire about working with Coravin as a brand is that I had Jessica texting me about Prime Day probably in February, even though at that point it was still months out. And even Black Friday, we've had conversations about that back in February when we were almost 3 quarters away. So I would just say, even though on a calendar it feels like it's a long time period away, I would just always be prepping for and making sure you've got all of your basics covered and everything you need to be successful for Prime Day this year, Black Friday, Prime Day next year, etc.
How about you, Jessica?
No, I totally agree with that. I think my biggest feedback would just be spend the time, spend the money to do whatever you have to do to get your house clean on Amazon. It will pay off in spades. So whether that's fixing up your listings, whether that's taking the time and going through the process of trying to remove rogue sellers, there's the whole host of things that you can do to improve your conversion before you even start thinking about something like Prime Day. And I think my next biggest thing is definitely heed pattern suggestions about getting your inventory in early. We have seen firsthand over and over and over again how crazy those FBA warehouses are during Q4, and we've gotten burnt by it a couple of times where we've experienced out of stock situations in December, which is not ideal. So at this point, Newel and I have been working together to try to get orders into FBA for holiday by September, just anticipating everything that might be going on with COVID. So I kind of, to be quite honest, had a oh crap moment where when Newel said, hey, let's get it in September, I was like, wow, that's early, but we talked about it. I actually think that that's the right approach, and it'll allow you to capitalize on sales throughout the holiday season.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. Jessica, thanks for joining us from Coravin.
Yeah.
Sure appreciate you guys. Love your products, love your business. Thanks again for everyone joining. Like I said before, we've recorded this session. We'll send it out. And thank you, everyone, for your participation and comments around any tips that might be happening, as well as insights around when Prime Day may or may not be happening. So, again, thanks, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you on the next